Blessed love and peace. Addenda. Udi addenda. Alfalfa addenda. Gombaru addenda. A couple things I share in recent days. It's Juma and Shabbat. And then earlier today, Domingo. So first joint that I share in that first experience chronologically, Friday, Juma, Shabbat, about the pimp game on the campus, the campus courtyards, the Imperial Republic courtyards. I talked about the two main components, the two main participants being the Sons of Legacy, the Legacy Sons, and then the Virgin Women. So then I talked about the workhorses who are recruited in the long spectrum of beings, particularly vying to ascend the hierarchies. So here's this is very subtle. It's even escaped my mentioning at that moment, although I did think about it before that as preparation, but no notes anyways. It's very subtle, but at the same time, it's very severe. It's very beneficial to recognize this. I might have mentioned briefly, made brief mention of this, talking about studs, certain of the show, certain of the workhorses being reserved to stud, and some of the workhorses being, I might have mentioned being like showbread, like being like featured, showcased is the appropriate word. So some being to stud, some being showcased, and then others just being workhorses. Beneficial recognizes the only ones being studied are the ones who are the Sons of Legacy. That's it. Those are the ones who are designated to be studied. Otherwise, there's no motivation. If somebody else is rising through the ranks to be in that position, they got to do it themselves. It's not done for them. So that's it. Those that are reserved for stud, that's on the part of men. On the part of women can rise through the ranks and be acculturated, or otherwise. Those are the ones who are reserved, particularly a virgin woman, and additionally, who has a lot of potential, the diamond in the rough or whatever, diamonds in the rough. Those women can be selected from without having lineage or pedigree or whatever else for the selection in the designation and the dibs of the Sons of Legacy and or whomever else. But for the brethren, the only studs, the only ones who are selected to stud are the ones who are already legacy sons. So that's that. Now that being said, that's actually very beneficial for kinfolk to recognize and not to get it twisted, to know what lane they're in, and not to get it twisted. The other component is showcased. Kinfolk to be showcased. What we mean by that? We mean kinfolk who are selected, who are not the legacy, who are not Sons of Legacy, who are ambitious or who have talent, and that talent is undeniable. Heavens have conferred upon individuals, brethren, particularly his talent, and so they are featured. But the actuality is that the kinfolk are featured, particularly the brethren, and the sistren too. And this becomes further like the systemic experience, the cultural experience. But get to that in a moment, God willing. For the brethren first. Showcased. And by that, it's being gaslit, given all types of hype talk. Oh, you nice, you this, you that. Oh, yeah, no, we got an opportunity for that. No, you can meet this, and that. So all these opportunities, and a lot of the opportunities are actually valid, like follow through in addition, like unthinkable, unfathomable opportunities. But at the same time, there's very little intention of actually supporting the brethren, particularly outside of the sphere of the university years and environment in life at all, for marriage, for jobs, or otherwise. But in that window, when that brethren particularly is like lighting it up, feed it, gaslight, build it up, because what that does is it builds a profile of the institution of that particular courtyard to make it further competitive. It gives confidence to the other workhorses who already found their lane, who already found their mates or whatever else, or know where their grind is, not trying to ascend beyond that. and promoting the courtyard as in the prestige of the courtyard amidst the further competitions for ongoing generations. Um, so the leadership, again, professors, administrators, and the fathers of the legacy, alumni fit in generally in the element too. Have an interest in keeping the prestige of the courtyard higher so that the prospects of relationship with that courtyard are further competitive with other courtyards. And so when receiving a recruit not a legacy but a workhorse who has talent, like doing investing in that at that moment to increase the prestige of the courtyard, and that means competitions, knocking out others. Again, intellectual gladiatorship and otherwise, but knocking out competition and also attracting additional women to attend. You're not seeing my hand gestures here, but attracting additional women to attend and even just apply and submit candidacy to involve or to participate within that courtyard. That campus courtyard, because that in itself increases the perceived value and prestige of that courtyard and makes it easier for others affiliated to compete with other courtyards. So the workhorse who is showcased is put out there to knock out the competition of other courtyards, the comparable competition from the other courtyards, and also to lift the credibility, the prestige of the courtyard, to attract others, Cistercian particularly for that. It's similar to like the big game fishing, whatever it is, as much as we understand, where like when you go out to get big fish, that's one thing, but when you go out to get huge fish, now we're not predators, so we don't do these things, but this is what we understand, that people have to wake up early in the day and first catch a big fish. Do what it takes to catch a big fish, and then utilize that big fish to go out and get even a bigger fish that wants to eat that big fish. So in this case, the workhorse who is showcased is the big fish. They caught, they're reeled in. The courtyard has them. Then they go out and they feature that big fish to get even bigger fish to come to the courtyard. And additionally, and just again increase the prestige of the courtyard. So be mindful of that, because when brethren are workhorses and think they're doing things and they get nice and they get supporting, and additionally, but don't have that marital establishment arrangement, don't have a spouse, don't have a fiance, be mindful, because those things can be taken quickly, and kinfolk can be left out to dry quickly and continually. And all that love and everything else like that at one moment can be gone, and actually in many ways will be gone if brethren don't make preparations beforehand and just presume things as given and it's going to be there, whatever else, to know that, because in that environment, in those realms, in those stakes, there's little loyalty to individuals. There's little loyalty about friendship or like companionship or sentimentality or whatever else. I won't say cutthroat, but I mean, cats is out for self, and cats have very little perceived value in other selves, and instead, it's the institution itself. And so once a youngster is using up that talent for that window, there's little value the institution sees once that individual has completed that individual's immediate involvement in terms of being a student and enrolled. It's for the individual to secure the job, secure money, and then provide contribution accordingly in that respect. But it's not a matter of sentiment. It's not a matter of relationship or otherwise. At least as the standard is today. So my point, I'll sum it up very briefly, because we got ting to do, and do's to tings. The point is, a brethren can perceive himself as like being a superstar in that moment, getting all types of support and backup and everything else like that, and just presume that it continues to be that way. However, to recognize that there are what can be recognized as ulterior motives, that is not actually support for that person, that brethren himself. It's support for what that brethren can provide for the institution at that moment. And once he completes that process of that formal process of enrollment, there's little else he can do in that capacity. And it's up to him in his postgraduate path of fending for himself and any type of ongoing continuation with that institution or the kinfolk of that institution, and not to presume loyalties or otherwise just because of experience or otherwise. When we get into the echelons of society and competition and everything, there's very little personal loyalties. There's little honor or code or in that respect these days. Allegiances are significantly predicated upon viability, and there's a lot of volatility. So, point is, if I could say this, I'm working on getting it. I'm speaking around it, but to recognize, to be mindful of the gaslight, and it's not. It's difficult to avoid. It's difficult to like distance or whatever else. But the main thing is, in that condition, in that moment, in that environment, to be mindful and to be very prudent in preparations accordingly. And rather than just staking and attaching one's cart or wagon or prospects on that gaslight support at that moment, to look at the relationships, the commitments at that moment for himself and for his well-being. Basically, what I'm saying is, going back to this whole thing was on the topic of marriage, in the context of marriage. So to secure those types of arrangements, to secure marriage at that age, before graduating, because after graduating the prospects diminish. Serious, night and day. Secure marriage, when you think like there's an unending fountain of women and attention and love and affection and congeniality from all different types of women, find one, commit to one, marry one, propose to one before graduation, because after graduation, whoop, it's gone. There's no daily interaction with women. There's no just women all over the place, attractive young women who are loving and affectionate, genuinely, who are ready to marry at that moment. It's gone. It's done. No. This is enrolled students only. The workplace is very different. Those are competitors. Those are soldiers. It's a different thing. The world is different after graduation. Night and day is the difference. And a man has to fend for himself. There's not the backup that there was before that. The workhorse particularly has to fend for himself and make his way in this life. There are no givens. Everything that is given has a price. So, in that experience of being in the courtyard every day, it's overwhelming. It's too much. It's like, I can't. I'm tired of seeing attractive young women who are just so nice and friendly to me, and ask me out on dates and want to pay for it and everything else. I'm tired of that. It's too much. Okay, night and day. It's beneficial amidst that inundation of intoxication, the beauty of women, young, vibrant, virile women, to commit. To like find one who's enough and commit. One of the most painful things, there's a lot of painful things in this life, but one of the most painful things is experiencing the love of a woman. The unquestionable, overwhelming love of a woman. Overwhelming love of a woman. Young woman, bright eyes, and everything. Adored. And then the next night and day, nothing. On to the next. Out of the scene, not in the club any further. Disqualified. No hate. It's just how the game is. All those um, pestering, like always like gushing young sistren who are always so loving and affectionate, and additionally, it's annoying and it's bothersome. Gone, done, fine, night and day. It's not there. All those unending options of women to call, women to go out with, women to listen to what you got to say, let alone all the unspeakable type of joints. Done, gone, out, disqualified. Membership no longer valid. But it's the daily interaction. It's the environment of being with that familiarity, with that support, and just presuming it as a given, because that's been the school experience. Now, some brethren are cultivated already, particularly when going to all boys schools, and additionally already know what that's like in terms of not being in that environment as a given per se. But for many brethren who are cultivated to a co-ed kind of experience, it's a different thing, the actual life. So, anyways, and the thing is, the attention is drawn a lot of times away from that actuality, and that's what I'm talking about. When the workhorses are selected, when certain workhorses are selected to be showcased, and thinking like, yo, I'm getting all this support, all this, and the other, it's not forever, and it can actually distract brethren from making decisions of committing, of settling down, of thinking, this is enough for me. I'm satisfied with this right here. This is it. This is what's important. I want to focus on this. So again, that's tempering. It's tempering the ambitions and tempering the intoxication amidst the gaslight, particularly for brethren who are talented and are selected and special and otherwise, to recognize that the roller coaster ride is only for a few minutes, and it's beneficial to be able to leave the ride with a partner, with a wifey, and with certain arrangements accordingly, because a wifey helps in helping a brethren to be practical and make decisions that are for his benefit, rather than just continually giving an altruistic or even just implausible and increasingly leveraged. Women help the brethren be further pragmatic and earthly. So, perfect balance. Perfect balance. You hear that now? Perfect balance in this life. Let me tell it. Perfect balance. Masculine and feminine. Experiencing that before being alone after graduation, and having to cultivate that and engineer that oneself. Perfect balance when there's still that support of institutions and communities and even family to guide that perfect balance together before entering into this foray of the wilderness. So that's the first joint. 20 minutes on that. Wow. All right. Second joint. What was the second joint about? Blocking the honey. Wow. It was about something I said today. How not? This is getting to be too much. This alfalfa thing. Something I didn't say before. Well, I'll think about the second thing. I'll share the second thing I think about whilst at the moment. Grammar. Grammar. That's actually a 90s hip hop reference. That's glamour, but we're just saying grammar here. Why not? All the references. See the psychology of culture, the infusion, the influence, the recall, the relationship and the guidance and continuation. Here it is. Myself. Um, the basic synopsis of this one is this: 50 is the new 20. How about that? We make it to whatever. Yeah, right. But this is the rationale. When I'm in my 20s, don't even think about age too much. It is what it is. Roaring 20s, the roaring 20s. In the 30s, that's when I feel old. That's when there's still that semblance of still like being normal, that potential of being normal, even though it's way distance at that moment. Most of my colleagues, most of my kinfolk my age are married at that point, and if not having children, about to be having children. So 30s, early 30s to mid 30s is like that's when I feel the oldest, because there's still that like semblance of still couldn't have a normal life like everybody else. 30s, but it's tick-tocky. It's tick-tocky. Um, and then when getting 40s, that's when it becomes we on a different boat today. Life is a different thing right now. So normalcy, nah, it's not even. They can't even pretend that way. We're gonna if there's any still that slight semblance of normalcy, it's gonna be that we're gonna have an explanation, that story that's told at the dinner parties or whatever else of like how meeting with the wifey and everything else, like it's gonna be story time, and it's gonna be that unique character or whatever, that one unique character amongst the 100 families or whatever in the community. But most likely it was like, no, we're already accustomed, we're already conditioned to be like, we have to be like in biblical kind of things at this point. We're gonna have to be in the ancient stories, like the epic saga tales at this point. This is what this is at this point. Not married and not having children at age 40. What up? That's 40. Now, at that time, there's a certain peacefulness, because again, the 30s is when it's stressful, because when it still seems like it can still be, the normal life can still happen. By 40s, it's kind of like, we on a different thing. One of these kids is doing his own thing, Sesame Street. So it's less stress, to be honest. I mean, there's frustration, there's pains, and there's melancholy, there's sadology, but at the same time, it's like, there's a further peacefulness, because we got here. Like, I think the majority of humans on this life haven't gotten this part. So whatever we're doing, we're still here, 40 years old. So okay, we've learned some things, obviously something to keep on doing what we're doing, and I mean we can still deal with ourselves, look at ourselves in the day, presumably, and just be like, okay, still doing it. That's 40. Now, in terms of relationship and interaction with life and society. The way I start talking about it when I'm hitting 40 is I look at myself as a 25-year-old with 20 years of experience. That's even before I turned 45. Because that's what I felt like, because I'm very much the same dude that I was when I was in my formal years of study. Because I haven't had the responsibility or that weight of authority that comes with fatherhood or otherwise. So I'm this young acting whatever. I feel very much 25. That's how I look. That's my. Now at 25, I was very mature and whatever, very cerebral and cultivated, not disciplined still in the way that I'm at least today, somewhat so, but still, that's formidable. 25 years old, that's legit. So I look at myself as a 25-year-old with 20 years of experience when I'm in my 40s, because that's how I feel life. Now my body might be saying something else, but I've been overweight, I've been obese at 16, 17 years old, so I know what it's like not to be like the vibrant whatever and still be young. So that's how I feel. That's the lightness, the lightheartedness. 25-year-old with 20 years of experience, and that's legit. That's not trying to hide the age. Ain't hiding no age or whatever else like that. But that's just like the vibrancy. And just the other day, brethren said, "You look good for being in your 50s." How did you know it's my 50s? He just said, class of 92. All right. Anyways. So that's 40s, 25-year-old with 20 years of experience. That's it. There it is. Now here we are now, 50. We done hit 50. Now what we say with this one is this. Now this is just hot off the press, fresh off the press. Is this? We're 20-year-old. Oh, how do we do that? We done drop years. We're 20-year-old with perhaps 20 years to live. How about that? Ooh, harder. Perhaps could be 20 years, could be 20 seconds. Ain't no guarantees. But that's the mindset. First of all, again, with the recent joints I shared in terms of like relationship and patience and not being so pressed, even amidst the conditions of being married immediately, just off rip, it is a further settlement back into that experience of being in the early 20s, of not being pressed, of not having to say yes or have a woman say yes at that moment, and instead, like, be further like reserved and relaxed. And that's very much feeling like I am in my 20s. And we can meet. Let's meet up at the spot tomorrow. I don't need your number. You don't need my number. I don't even need your name. You don't need my name. Let's meet at that spot. You know that spot. I know that spot. Let's meet there at this time the next day, and let's continue the conversation. And we'll see what goes from there. So it doesn't have to be at that moment overnight and otherwise. So with that, a lot of pressure is gone, and with that lack of pressure, then there's further relaxation and just that vibration of being in that youthful experience. So 20 years old, we done turned 20, but here's the thing: we only got so much to live at this point, maybe 20 years, and that's how we look at it. So any wife I have, we can look at 20 years, and again, it's not given, but just plan for 20 years. So in those 20 years, I share what I can share, establish the family, provide for the family as much as possible, share the knowledge about the negotiation and relationships with this earth, civilization, society, and otherwise, so that you can do what you can do, the children can do what the children can do, and otherwise. But that's it. A 20-year-old with maybe 20 years left. Could be 30, 40 years. Could be 30, 40 seconds. That's the mindset at this moment. Not trying to hide the age or whatever else, because age at this point is comparatively inconsequential. We can talk about bodily function and this and the other. It's comparable. So 20-year-old with 20 years of maybe. That's the second joint. What else is going on here? It was going to escape me at the moment. We got things to do. So maybe, God willing, amidst another recording, we will complete it at that point. In the meanwhile, we give all thanks and praise to the Most High Elohim. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.